The twin suns of Valar 9 hung low in the orange sky. The wind blew dry dust across the rocky land, whistling through broken structures and old cargo pods. It was a quiet, empty place, long abandoned after the mining wars ended. Mark, a human, engineer and freelance salvager, moved carefully through the dust. His boots left deep prints in the sand. A sensor device beeped in his hand. He followed the signal toward a half-buried storage unit. "Just some scrap," he muttered. "Maybe old tech, maybe nothing." He knelt down, pulled the cover off, a crate, and reached inside. Then, he heard it. A click. Very sharp, very close. He froze. Slowly he looked up and saw the barrel of a plasma rifle pointed straight at his face. Standing above him was a tall, alien woman. Her skin was violet gray, her armor dusty but strong. Her silver eyes narrowed and her voice was sharp. "Step away from the crate. Now." Mark raised his hand slowly. Okay. I'm not here to steal anything. I didn't know this was claimed." She didn't blink, didn't lower the weapon. He saw her finger on the trigger tightening, one wrong move and he was dead. Suddenly, there was a voice. Soft, high. "No, don't hurt him." A small figure ran through the dust. A little alien girl, no older than 6, rushed forward and stood between them, her arms spread wide, her body shaking, tears in her golden eyes. She looked up at the woman and shouted, "You can't shoot him." "That's my father." Everything stopped. Even the wind felt silent. Mark's mouth opened slightly. "What?" The alien woman's weapon trembled. Her eyes widened as she looked at the girl. "Kiri?" she whispered. "What are you saying?" The girl turned around and grabbed Mark's hand tightly. "He's the one from my dreams, the one I saw in the light. I know him." Mark didn't understand. He had never seen her before, but something about her eyes, the way she clung, to him, it felt real. The woman slowly lowered her weapon, confusion on her face. "Kiri, you don't have a father," she said. "You were." She stopped, bit her lip. Mark looked between them. "All right," he said carefully. "Someone explain what's going on. Who is she, and why is she calling me her dad?" The girl buried her face in his chest, holding him tightly. "I waited," she whispered. "I waited for you to come." The woman finally spoke again. "My name is Soraya. The child's name is Kiri. She is not ordinary." Mark frowned. "I can see that. She was part of an experimental project, a hybrid, created using DNA, human DNA. But we never knew where it came from. She was grown in a lab, not born." Mark felt cold. "You're telling me someone used my genes?" Soraya's voice was flat. "It's possible. Many humans were taken during the war, samples collected without consent." Mark looked down at the girl, holding him like family. A strange warmth bloomed in his chest. He had no children, no family, no one. But right now, this little girl believed in him, with all her heart. "I saw his face in my dreams," Kiri whispered again. "He always smiled at me, even when everything was dark." Soraya looked torn. She lowered her weapon fully. "I was assigned to watch over her, but she's never reacted to anyone like this, not even the other humans." Mark looked around. "I'm not sure what's going on, but if she's in danger, she's coming with me." Soraya stepped forward. "You can't just take her," but Kiri tightened her grip. "I'm staying with him." Mark took a deep breath. "Then maybe it's time we find out the truth." Together, far above, hidden in orbit, a drone blinked. It had recorded everything, and it sent a signal to someone in the shadows. "Subject Kiri located. Human contact confirmed. Prepare retrieval." Mark couldn't sleep. He sat by the campfire under the twin moons of Valar 9, watching shadows dance across the rocks. Kiri lay nearby, curled up in an old survival blanket, already fast asleep. Her small hand still clutched his shirt, like she was afraid he'd vanish. Across from him sat Soraya, the alien woman who had aimed a weapon at him just hours ago. Now, her weapon was on the ground beside her. She really believes you're her father, Soraya said softly. Mark stared into the fire. I don't understand it. I've never even heard of her until today. She's never done this before, Soraya said. Never touched anyone. Never even smiled. Not until now. Mark glanced at Kiri's peaceful face. She doesn't feel like a stranger. There was a long silence. Then Soraya spoke again. She was created, not born. During the last war, a rogue science team took DNA from captured soldiers, without permission. You were likely one of them. Mark's stomach turned. You're saying I was used like a lab rat? Soraya nodded. Your genes are inside her. She's 40% human. The rest, enhanced Varnari. Built to survive. Built to learn. Built? Mark repeated, his voice sharp. She's a child. Not a weapon. I know, Soraya said. But others don't see it that way. Mark stood up, pacing. Why tell me now what's changed? Soraya looked at him seriously. Because someone else knows you're here. A drone followed us. It's already sent a signal. Kiri isn't safe anymore. Mark clenched his jaw. So what happens now? Soraya picked up her weapon and stood. Now we protect her. The next morning they traveled to a nearby cave system, an old hideout from Soraya's resistance days. Hidden sensors scanned the area. Nothing followed. Not yet. Kiri skipped ahead, humming softly. Why is she so
happy?
Mark asked, carrying a pack. Soraya looked at him. Because she's never had a choice. Until now. Inside the cave, Soraya showed Mark a cracked tablet. On it were medical logs. One of the entries stopped him cold. Project Kiri 17. Human. DNA sample 043M. Source Mark Holland unaware. Mark stared at the screen. His name, in a file, in a project he never agreed to. I was just a scout, he muttered. Not even important. Why take me? They weren't looking for warriors, Soraya said. They wanted kindness, patience, empathy, traits not found in many Varnari. Mark looked up. They wanted human heart. Soraya nodded. And they gave it to her. Kiri walked in, smiling. Are we safe now? Mark knelt beside her. We're safer, but not safe. She tilted her head. Are you leaving me? Mark froze. Do you want me to? She shook her head quickly. No, I want to stay, with you. He placed his hand, gently on her head. Then I'll stay too. Outside, far above the canyon, a sleek black ship hovered in silence. Inside sat a man in dark armor watching a screen. Kiri's face appeared on it. So did Mark's. The man tapped a button. Target confirmed. Prepare capture unit. Do not damage the child. Kill the others if needed. Back in the cave, Kiri crawled into Mark's lap and whispered, Do you believe in dreams? Mark nodded slowly. I think I do now. She smiled, glowing faintly in the dim light. I dreamed you'd find me. Mark pulled her close. And I'm not going anywhere. The air inside the cave was still. Mark stood in silence, staring at the ancient medical logs on the cracked tablet Soraya had shown him. The words blurred in his eyes, but one line burned into his mind like fire. Kiri 17. Genetic memory carrier. Human Varnari hybrid. Emergency failsafe encoded in blood. He whispered the last words again. Failsafe. In her blood. Soraya stood behind him, arms crossed, her face unreadable. She doesn't know, she said softly. Kiri thinks she's just a child, but she was designed to carry something powerful, something dangerous. Mark turned sharply. You knew? I suspected? Soraya replied. I was one of the guards at the lab. I watched what they did. Most of the children didn't survive. Kiri, she was different. In the corner, Kiri sat cross-legged, playing with stones and humming softly. She had no idea the world was ready to hunt her again. Mark watched her. What is the failsafe? We're not sure, Soraya said. The files were corrupted during the final raid, but there are whispers that inside her blood is a genetic code, a signal. If activated, it could trigger an ancient Varnari system. Mark frowned. A weapon? Soraya nodded. Or something worse. Mark ran a hand down his face. Why me? Why put my DNA in a child meant to carry a weapon? Soraya looked at him, eyes softer now. They didn't just want any human. They wanted someone who showed restraint. Mercy. They found that in you. That's why she bonded to you. Mark sat down slowly beside the fire. So she's a walking target, a key, a memory, and a miracle. Yes, Soraya said. And now she's your responsibility. A soft beep echoed from Mark's pack. He pulled out his comms device. Signal found, encrypted message. The screen blinked. We know where you are. Mark froze. Soraya grabbed her weapon. They've arrived. Outside, far across the rocky valley, black ships descended through the clouds, silent, deadly. Inside the lead ship, the armored man watched the readings. Target blood signature detected. Lifeform confirmed. Hybrid carrier commence ground operation. Back in the cave, Kiri sensed it. She stopped playing. Her glowing eyes narrowed. Her voice barely a whisper. They're here. Mark stood. You sure? She nodded. I can feel them. Soraya moved to the entrance, setting mines around the edge. We won't survive a direct hit. We have to move. Mark looked down at Kiri. Can you run? She stood up bravely and took his hand. I'll run if you run with me. As they exited the cave, Kiri suddenly stopped. She closed her eyes. Her body shimmered faintly. What's happening? Mark asked, kneeling beside her. Kiri's voice was calm. Too calm. I feel something waking up inside me. Something old. Soraya gasped. It's the genetic key. She's activating. Mark held her shoulders gently. Stay with me, kid. Whatever's inside you, we'll face it, together. Behind them, explosions rocked the hills. Black-clad soldiers advanced fast, but Kiri turned, lifted her hands, and the ground trembled. A bright pulse burst from her body. Waves of silver light pushed across the valley. The enemy soldiers froze mid-step, then collapsed unconscious. Every weapon short-circuited, every scanner went dark. Soraya stared in disbelief. She just shut down an entire assault squad. Kiri opened her eyes, blinking slowly. I didn't know I could do that, she whispered. Mark smiled. Neither did they. But high above, the commander still watched. He pressed his headset. She's activated. Phase 2 begins. The valley was silent now. Enemy soldiers lay scattered across the ground, not dead, but unconscious. Their armor smoked. Their weapons were fried, all brought down by a single burst of energy from Kiri. She stood still, her small frame glowing faintly. Her hands lowered. Mark placed a hand on her shoulder. You okay? Kiri nodded slowly, but her eyes looked distant. I didn't mean to hurt them, I just wanted them to stop. Soraya stepped forward, her voice tight. You saved us. But that kind of power, it will bring worse. High above, a sleek ship circled. Inside, Commander Drex watched the scene below with cold eyes. His armor was black as night. His face was marked with long scars, earned in silence, remembered with hate. He turned to his second-in-command. She's waking, up sooner than expected. The officer nodded. Should we engage? Drex shook his head. No, not yet. I want her scared, cornered. Then I speak to her. As Mark, Soraya, and Kiri moved through the red canyons, Soraya explained the enemy chasing them. Drex was part of the original program. He believed in perfect control. No freedom, no emotion. He saw the children as tools. Mark asked, then why does he want her alive? Because she's the last, Soraya said. The only one who still works. The others, they rejected their code. And her? Mark asked. She's different, Soraya whispered. Because of you. They stopped at a rusted outpost built into the cliffs. Hidden, half-buried, it was a place Soraya once used for recon missions. Inside, Kiri sat on a crate quiet. Mark sat beside her. Do you feel okay? She shook her head. Something is pulling at me, like a whisper, inside my bones. He frowned. Is it scary? Yes, she whispered, but it also feels familiar. Suddenly the old comms panel crackled to life. A voice, deep, cold, commanding. Kiri, I know you can hear me. Mark jumped to his feet. Soraya raised her weapon. Kiri stood slowly. The voice continued. You don't know who I am, but I know you. I was there the day you opened your eyes. I gave you your name. I held you before anyone else. Kiri gasped. Mark whispered, Drex. The voice said, You were my finest creation, and now you run, with the man whose DNA gave you shape. But he doesn't understand what you really are. He doesn't want to understand. Mark shouted into the mic, Stay away from her. But Drex only laughed. Let her choose, Mark. I'm sending her coordinates. If she comes to me willingly, I'll stop hunting. Otherwise, your war begins tonight. The transmission ended. The room fell quiet. Then Kiri spoke, her voice trembling. He's telling the truth and about holding me. I remember cold hands and a voice in the dark. That was him. Mark sat down. Kiri, you don't have to go anywhere. She looked at him with wide, scared eyes. But what if going means no one else gets hurt? That night, a storm rolled across the desert. Wind sharp, sand flying like knives. The outpost rattled in the gusts. Mark stood at the entrance, guarding. Inside, Kiri slept curled in a blanket, her hand around Soraya's, but Mark could not sleep. Not when he knew Drex had once held her like a father, and might do it again. Miles away, under the storm, Drex stepped off his ship. He raised a small device. It blinked green. A signal responded, not from Kiri, but from inside Mark's gear. Back at the outpost, Soraya saw it first. A faint red light blinking in Mark's bag. Her eyes widened. It's a tracker. Mark froze. What? No, I didn't. Kiri awoke, staring in horror. He found us. Soraya grabbed Kiri. Mark threw the tracker into the fire, but it was too late. A deep hum filled the canyon. The hunter had arrived. The wind screamed. Sand tore through the canyon like knives as the black ship descended. The ground trembled under its weight. Mark stood at the outpost door, his rifle shaking in his hands. Behind him, Soraya crouched beside Kiri, whispering calming words. But Kiri's eyes stayed locked on the door. She could feel him. Commander Drex. The man who once whispered to her in a dark lab, the one who had called her his creation. Outside, Drex stepped down from his ship. No helmet. No fear. He walked through the storm as if it bowed to him. He stopped a few meters from the outpost and raised a speaker to his mouth. Mark, Soraya, I am not here to destroy. I am here to reclaim what is mine. Send the girl out. She will not be harmed. Inside, Mark's jaw clenched. He looked back at Kiri. She looked so small, but her hands were glowing again, like before. She's not going anywhere, Mark shouted. Drex's voice came back, calm as ice. Then I will tear this place down stone by stone. You will fall, the woman will fall, but the girl will still be taken. Only now she will watch you die first. Soraya placed a hand on Mark's arm. He won't stop. Not until one of us gives in. Mark looked at her. No. I'm done running. He turned to Kiri, knelt before her, his voice soft. You don't have to be anything but a child. Not a weapon. Not a key. Just my daughter. Kiri looked up, eyes shimmering. But he's part of me, Mark nodded, and I'm part of you too. He took her hand and placed it over his heart. Which voice do you want to listen to, Kiri? His or yours? Outside, Drex gave a signal. Soldiers poured out from behind the cliffs, moving fast. Mark raised his weapon. Soraya activated a shield. Generator Kiri stood between them, shaking, glowing brighter. "Don't hurt them," she cried, and then she screamed. But not in fear, in will. A sonic pulse burst from her body. The shield generator exploded in sparks. Mark and Soraya dropped to the ground, shielding their faces. The entire canyon shook. Soldiers collapsed mid-run, unconscious. Even Drex staggered back, blood dripping from his ears. He looked up in rage. She was awake now. Inside the storm of energy, Kiri floated a few inches above the ground, eyes pure white, hair rising with the current around her. And in that moment, she wasn't a lab project, wasn't a tool. She was something new, something that made even Drex take a step back. Then, her voice echoed. Not with rage, but with sorrow. "You are not my father." The energy stopped. She fell gently to the ground. Mark caught her before she hit the floor. Kiri leaned into his chest, whispering, "You are." Drex stood in silence, bruised, defeated, but not broken. "You think this is over?" he called. "She will need answers, and I will always be one of them." Then he vanished into his ship, vanishing into the storm. Mark held Kiri tight. "I'm here," he whispered, "and I'm staying." The storm was gone. The wind had died, but something heavier than silence hung in the air. Kiri sat by the fire in the broken outpost, wrapped in Soraya's cloak. Her glow had faded. Her hands no longer sparked. She looked like a normal child again, except everyone now knew she wasn't. Mark stood on the rooftop, watching the twin moons rise. Their pale light painted the canyon silver. He had one hand on his rifle, the other holding the tracking scanner. Soraya climbed up beside him. "Any sign of Drex?" Mark shook his head. "He's not coming back tonight." Soraya leaned on the railing. "He doesn't need to. He planted the seed." Mark looked at her. "What seed?" "The one growing in Kiri. Doubt." Down below, Kiri sat quietly. Her face was blank. Her fingers traced patterns in the dust. She wasn't humming anymore. Later that night, Mark brought her food. She didn't eat. He knelt in front of her. "What's wrong?" She looked up slowly. "Do you think I'm dangerous?" He blinked. "No. But I hurt people," she said. "Even the ones I didn't want to." "You protected us," Mark replied. "I broke the sky," she whispered. Mark gently took her hand. "You're not dangerous. You're powerful. There's a difference." Kiri's voice shook. What if I turn into him?" Mark pulled her close. "Then I'll be here to remind you who you really are." The words settled between them like dust. But outside the outpost, someone watched. A silhouette crouched behind the rocks. Not Drex, not a soldier. It was a human, tall, armored in rusted gear, carrying a rifle. His badge showed the logo of an Earth recon unit. The figure raised a comlink. "Target confirmed. The child is with the asset. Orders?" A voice crackled back. "Eliminate the alien, secure the child. Do not engage the male, unless he interferes." Back. Inside, Soraya prepped supplies. Her body was tired, her eyes heavier. She moved outside to check the water tanks, and that's when the shot hit. Crack. A pulse round slammed into her shoulder. She hit the ground hard, groaning in pain. Mark spun at the sound, rifle raised. Another shot missed him by inches. He shouted, "Kiri, get down!" From the shadows, the human soldier stepped forward. Face, masked, gun steady. "I don't want to hurt the girl," he said calmly. "But I will." Mark raised his weapon. "Who sent you?" The soldier replied, "Earth intelligence. We got the signal. The child is too dangerous to be left free." Kiri peeked from behind a crate, shaking. Mark shouted, "She's not a threat. She's not a child. the man replied. She's a weapon that thinks it's a child. Mark moved in front of Kiri. If you want her, you'll have to go through me. The soldier raised his weapon, but before he could fire, Kiri stepped forward, small, brave, glowing again. Her voice was soft. I won't hurt you. The man hesitated. Her light grew brighter, then brighter still, and the gun in his hands melted. He screamed and dropped it, backing away. Kiri didn't move. She only said one thing. I choose to protect. The man ran. He didn't look back. Mark ran to Soraya, helping her sit up. She was bleeding, but alive. Kiri rushed to her side, glowing softly, holding her hand. You're not alone, she said. Soraya smiled weakly. Neither are you. That night, as the moons crossed paths above them, Kiri spoke quietly to Mark. Will there always be people who want to take me? Yes, he answered honestly. But will you always stop them? Mark smiled every time. Morning came slow and quiet. Soft golden light spilled across the canyon floor. The air was calm now, peaceful. But something deeper had changed. Kiri sat on a rock at the edge of the valley, her legs swinging gently. She watched the horizon like it was telling her secrets. Her hands no longer glowed. Beside her sat Mark, silent, thoughtful. He looked tired but not broken. They had survived. But now came the question neither of them wanted to ask. Kiri looked up at him. Are you leaving? Mark didn't answer right away. I don't know, he said at last. Earth is still out there. Drex is still out there. Maybe if I go back I can stop the people who want to hurt you. Kiri's voice was quiet. But if you go, I'll be alone again. He turned to her. You're not alone. She looked at him with those soft, glowing eyes. But you're the only one who calls me daughter. His heart clenched. No mission, no war, no planet. Nothing had ever meant more than that. Behind them, Soraya stepped forward slowly, her arm bandaged, but her step steady. She had heard every word. You don't have to choose between running and fighting anymore, she said gently. You can choose to build. Mark blinked. Build what? A home, she said. For her, for you, maybe for me too. Later that day, they reached an ancient temple carved into the canyon walls. It had once been a place of silence and sorrow. Now it became something else. Mark laid down metal sheets and tools from his salvager kit. He and Soraya repaired old doors, cleaned out rooms, and fixed the broken solar lights. Kiri painted symbols on the walls with glowing ink, her own language, her own story, a human hand, a small child, a glowing bond between them. One night, under the twin moons, Soraya lit a fire outside the new shelter. Kiri sat in Mark's lap, holding a wooden carving he made her. It was rough, but it looked like her. Will we ever see Earth? She asked softly. Mark smiled. Maybe one day, if you want to, but only when you're ready. She nodded. And what if they come back? Mark kissed the top of her head. Then I'll remind them what a father can do. In the days that followed, others came. Wanderers, hybrids, outcasts who had nowhere else to go. They heard the story of the glowing child, of the human who didn't run, of the girl who called him father. And in time the canyon filled with voices. Again, not war cries, but laughter. Not orders, but lullabies. Kiri stood at the entrance one day watching children run past. She whispered to herself, "This is home." And then she called out loud and proud, "Dad, dinner's ready." Mark stepped out of the workshop, wiping his hands. He smiled like he'd never smiled before. Because this wasn't a mission. It was a life.